Hello, my treasures. It's time for more exciting Hearthstone news. This time, we are going to be covering the more generic information that actually came out today, including the new Hearthstone set, which is March of the Lich King. If you're looking for information about the new Death Knight class, I'll leave my video on that down below, as I'm really excited to actually have a 11th class in the game, especially because I spent so much time in World of Warcraft maining a Death Knight. So let's begin with the March of the Lich King set. The March of the Lich King set introduces Death Knights, which I went fully in a separate video. There will be a new minion type being introduced with this set, which is Undead, which also means that they're going to be adding a dual type of minion, which will have minions have multiple tags if it is absolutely necessary, because there are a lot of minions right now that are missing a Undead tag that really should have it. And I think Blizzard said they went through every single minion that has ever been released and added additional tags if it was absolutely necessary, as they do have the technology to do so now, thanks to something like mercenaries, which are cards that gain additional effects once you reach a certain mana breakpoint. So, for example, of Embers of Strength, once you reach 6 mana, you will gain the additional ability of giving them +1/+2 without spending any additional mana. I do like this mechanic a lot. It gives some access and a little bit of flexibility to a lot of cards, very similar to the rank up cards. And for the login reward, we are going to be getting our first neutral spell, which is the Sunwell, since we are going to be having a battle between the Lich King and the Blood Elves in Silver Moon City. This card is going to be really fun to actually play around. I really kind of hoped it would be a 8-cost card, just so we would have a 8-cost mana card for Mage, but we might get one of those in this set. It also does show that they are willing to actually print some neutral spells, so we might see more of these types of cards in the nearby future, depending on how they're actually feeling, or even just way later in Stone's life. There's nothing off the table anymore, especially because we keep getting new classes about every 2 years, and we are seeing more and more changes to the game. We also are going to be getting a new type of rarity for cards, which is signature cards, which will show the complete full artwork for each individual card on it. There will be 18 of them for the new set. They are cards that won't be able to be crafted or disenchanted, which means you're going to probably get a little bit less dust if you end up getting these in the end. And they are going to be replacing the golden legendaries in the pre-order bonus, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And they are going to be changing the golden packs to signature golden packs, so you can have access to the signature cards in those pre-order bonuses. I'm curious of how this is going to shape out to be in the future. These cards have no real value outside of being just full artwork, which a lot of people really do seem to like. And I wonder if you can get a signature golden card so it can have a full animation. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities for this. I don't really care too much about it because I'm not really big into golden cards already, or even diamond cards. The big pre-order bonuses will give you the signature legendaries instead of golden legendaries, which means you're going to get less dust there. However, you are going to be getting 3 decks to start out with for Death Knights, which actually is an incredibly huge value. Price the 3 decks by themselves, but I would assume it's probably going to be around $40, given the history of them giving out pre-made decks in the past, since most pre-made decks I think are $10 to $15. I actually don't know. I've never actually bought one. And if you're getting 3, I'm assuming they're probably going to put them at a discount, so on and so forth. And a lot of people are probably going to be really excited to be able to get so many cards for so much additional value. The pre-order bonuses are also going to not have any of the other game modes in them anymore, which is kind of sad as a player who plays both mercenaries and standard, but it does make me a little bit more happy that we are going to be getting a lot more standard, since that seems to be the most expensive game mode to actually play. Legendary hero skins are another thing being added to the game, which are going to have a 3D model, and they are going to replace your hero frame, portrait, and so on and so forth. They have unique voice lines, though I really don't like this first one that we are being showcased here. It looks like it's directly taken out of the Warcraft 3 Reforged edition. I know some people are going to be nostalgic for something like this, but I honestly really just don't like how it looks. I like the border on the legendary skin. However, I am a little bit worried of how much this is going to cost in the end. It's supposedly supposed to be part of a Arthas Minithal bundle, which arrives on November 8th. I'm curious of how often these type of legendary skins are going to be introduced. They don't really affect me in any way because they don't offer some type of pay to win aspect, and I'm honestly perfectly fine with most cosmetics as long as they aren't pay to win. Another huge update that we're going to be seeing is a new event system, which puts a event in their own little place in the journal in your login screen, and also replaces the base image for the login journal to whatever the event is supposed to be about. This one is already currently live, while also showing off all the rewards for the event down in a taskbar below. And we also are going to be getting every single one of the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion until the new set actually comes out to play around with to shake up the meta a little bit. I can't wait to try to play around with Uther and the Jailer, since that will put a 4-turn clock on my opponent. And there's a lot of little cool synergies here and there that you can actually think of when you look at Knights of the Frozen Throne as a set. It was a very popular set, and honestly, I can't wait to play with stuff like Hadronox again or some of the other Death Knight cards. Okay, now that the general information is out of the way, let's look at the new cards revealed for all the other classes that aren't Death Knights. The first card revealed is Deal with the Devil, which is a 5-cost Fel spell for Demon Hunter that summons 2 3/3 Fel Fiends with lifesteal. If your deck has no minions, summon another. So we're seeing a token Demon Hunter deck that could be really, really fun to play. Very similar to how Hunter actually worked really early on in, I think, I can't remember what the set is now, but there was a real fun Hunter deck where you ran no minions within the entire deck, or maybe just 2 with Barnes and Yasharaj. And I really do love that style of deck where you're relying on a bunch of spells to actually generate your minions and get a lot of advantage off doing something like it. The next card revealed is Nerubian Flyer, which is a 2-cost Druid Undead minion with 2 attack, 3 HP. Battlecry: if a friendly undead died after your last turn, summon a 2/2 Nerubian. So the key mechanic for undead minions is going to be the fact that if you have one of them die in between your turns, or even before you play something like this on your turn, then you are going to gain some type of additional effect. This card is probably pretty good in a aggro-based druid deck, which already sees a lot of play right now. So I can't see a world where this doesn't see play, especially if we get a bunch of really good, cheap, neutral undead minions. But it really does rely on the fact if we get a bunch of cheap, neutral, undead minions. Because if we don't, then a card like this probably won't see much play. But because I'm expecting us to get a bunch of undead minions there, or even in the druid class, then I think this card is probably incredibly strong, since it is just going to be a 2 mana for 5, I guess. Very similar to the Death Knight Dark Transformation card. The next card revealed is Arcane Defenders, which is a 8-cost spell for Mage that has the Arcane tag. Summon 2 5/8 golems with taunt and cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. We finally have our 8-cost spell. I don't think it's that good, but we finally have our 8-cost spell. These are going to be incredibly hard to actually deal with for your opponent, but I honestly don't think they're strong enough to see a lot of play. Maybe if we see some additional arcane synergy in the form of the legendary minion, which I could honestly see, and maybe have a arcane mage pure deck, which could be really fun to play around with. The next card revealed is Arcane Bolt, which is a arcane spell that costs 1 mana, that deals 2 damage, and has the mana thirst 8, deal 3 instead. Really cheap direct damaging spells are always going to be really frightening to add into the game, especially because Mage still has their quest line that they could easily use this in combination with to make it do at a minimum, I think, 5 damage once you get to 8 mana, which is going to be incredibly scary to actually play against. And there's so many ways to actually randomly generate this in both Mage and the neutral pool of cards, where a card like this, I can't see a world where this doesn't see play in some type of Tempo Mage or even OTK Mage deck. The next card revealed is for Quoth the Loss, which is a 2-cost holy spell for Paladin that gives a friendly minion a +3 attack. Give your hero +2 attack this turn. Good for aggro Paladin. I don't know how good it's going to be outside of aggro Paladin. I do think this is probably a pretty decent enough card to see a lot of play, especially if aggro Paladin becomes something. But until then, I don't know where this actually fits outside of that deck. Next card revealed is Blood Matriarch liadren, which is a 2-cost minion for Paladin with 3 attack, 2 HP. After you summon a minion with less attack than this, give it Divine Shield and Rush. So you could easily target this with a bunch of buffs, thus making it where all your minions actually gain Divine Shield and Rush. You can also combo this with something like the Jailer, where you can make all your minions immune, which could be incredibly strong, depending on what deck you're actually playing. I do think a aggro Paladin deck between these last 2 cards is probably going to be something that some people will try out really early on. I do think Unholy DK is probably going to be the aggro deck to beat, but this does introduce a deck that really hasn't been supported too much in Paladin, and I actually am kind of happy to see something that is a little bit more unique for that class instead of the same old 3 decks over and over again. The next card revealed is Unliving Champion, which is a 3-cost undead minion with 3 attack, 2 HP for Shaman. Battlecry: if a friendly undead died after your last turn, summon 2/3 zombies. It looks like aggro is really going to be the type of deck that Blizzard is pushing forward, and I really don't like that. I honestly love when either control or combo is really the meta relevant builds. However, I do know aggro is probably better for the general player base because it is a lot, I guess, less annoying to play against. Though if it does get out of control, then Blizzard is going to have to do something. We do also have Bloodlust currently in rotation, so a card like this is probably incredibly strong, especially if we get a lot of additional neutral undeads or even undeads shaman. And it also does feed into the problem that is Sire Denathrius still. Now for the next card revealed, which is Silver Fury Steward, which is a 6-cost minion for warrior that has 4 attack, 8 HP. Taunt Rush cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. I've been really wanting to make a taunt warrior deck actually work, and this is the perfect card for it, though it is a little bit too expensive to try to use it in combination with stuff like Glory Chaser or some of the other additional taunt support. However, we are shaping up to finally be hitting the critical mass where I can actually make it a fully functional deck. I've been trying for so long to make it fully work, and I think between this, the Mossworn card from the last mini set, and some of the other previous neutral cards, that we could have something really fun to actually play around with. Again, this could just probably be a meme style of deck. We also are going to be seeing even more taunt synergy with Embers of Strength, which is a 2-cost warrior fire spell that summons 2/1/2 guardians with taunt. Mana Thirst 6, give them a +1/+2. Really easy way to have a token generating warrior deck. You can easily buff this up with your weapon that buffs up damaged minions, and there are other ways to generate additional taunt minions within warrior as tokens. So maybe we'll see some type of infused warrior taunt token deck where a card like this is incredibly strong. It also does give you a fire school of magic, thus allowing you to use stuff like multicaster to have additional draw power in such of a deck. Now for the neutral cards, Infected Peasant, which is a 2-cost 2 attack 1 HP minion with Death Rattle. Summon a 2/2 undead peasant. Just generic pack filler for the undead tag for a minion. It does have some Death Rattle synergy, which I think is the first Death Rattle that we've actually seen the entire set so far. So we'll probably get some additional ones. I would be shocked if we actually didn't see any more additional Death Rattles in the set centered around the Scourge, but you never know. The next card revealed is Street Sweeper, which is a 4-cost 2 attack 2 HP neutral minion that has the battle cry, deal 2 damage to all other minions. Really nice AoE support for any Decks that currently lack a AoE in their base class themselves, such as Rogue, could make a control style of deck for some of those classes actually be meta relevant. The next card revealed is Bone Flicker, which is a 2 mana, 2 attack, 3 HP undead neutral minion with the battle cry. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 2 damage. Probably could be easily abused in a bunch of aggro decks. I don't see a world where this doesn't see play if we do hit a critical mass of undead. This will probably, at bare minimum, see some type of play in Death Knights, as it is just a free 2 damage because you do have your hero power to use on turn 2, and a lot of just random undead synergy within the Death Knight class as a whole. Sun Fury Clergy is the next neutral card, which is a 3 cost neutral minion with 2 attack, 4 HP. Battlecry, restore 3 health to all friendly characters. Mana Thirst, 6, restore 6 instead. Nice little heal for a neutral card. A little bit better on average than a Spicy Bed Breaker, which already sees a lot of play, especially because you can use this card on turn 6 and it feels a lot better than using it on like turn 3. It also allows you to heal up all your minions if you really need to do it like that. So this is probably a pretty well-rounded card. The next card revealed is Silver Moon Sentinel, which is a 3 cost neutral minion with 2 attack, 5 HP, taunt, mana thirst 8, gain +2/+2, and Divine Shield are really good for a taunt warrior deck, like I mentioned earlier, that I really wanted to build. I do think this is probably a pretty decent card, and if a deck like that does end up forming around warrior, then this is the perfect fit for such a card. It doesn't cost too much, it costs cheap enough where you can play it early on, or you can wait to use it later in the game. And there's ways to get additional copies through warrior anyways. And now for the free card that everyone gets, the Sunwell, which is a 9 cost neutral spell that has the holy tag that fills your hand with random spells, costs 1 less for each other card in your hand. So you could easily use this early on in the game if you're just going to have a full hand the entire time, or you could use it later in the game where you want to fill up your hand with a bunch of random spells, thus making this a really, really good top deck. Sure, you're not always going to be able to get a card that you can always use, but as long as you can get one card that is really good off of something like this, then this could see a lot of play. I wish it cost 8 instead of 9, but it is what it is. We did end up getting a mage spell that did cost 8, which kind of solves that problem anyways. The next card revealed is Invincible, which is a 8 cost neutral minion with the undead tag and the beast tag with 5 attack, 5 HP, reborn, battlecry, and death rattle. So we are getting some additional death rattle support. Give a random friendly undead +5/+5 and taunt. It's very similar to the bone mare that used to exist in Knights of the Frozen Throne. I do think this one costs a little bit too much to see a lot of play unless you can actually mana cheat it in some way. It could be used maybe in a Druid death rattle deck, since it does allow you to actually use some of the death rattle support we saw in the last set, and this could in theory replace some of the other death rattle synergy that we've already seen or something like that. I again don't think outside of edge cases that this card will probably see too much play. And now for the card that is probably going to be the new Bran Healthis combo enabler, which is Lothemar Therian, which is a 7 cost neutral minion with 7 attack, 7 HP. That has the battle cry, double the stats of all minions in your deck. If you have a way to guarantee the fact that you're going to have some of your charged minions within your deck, this is going to be incredibly annoying to actually deal with. Sure, you're going to have to draw into a card like this before it becomes any use, but there's so many ways to actually duplicate this battle cry, or even just shuffle your cards back into the deck. It isn't even funny at this point. Demon Hunter probably could use this in combination with something like Inquisitor, where you get 16 worth of stats and thus hit your opponent's face for 16 whenever you do summon one of those minions. And there are ways to actually shuffle those cards back into your deck, thus guarantee the fact that you're actually going to be able to get those Inquisitors off. I think this is going to be an incredibly frustrating card to actually play against in the right decks, and in the decks that just want to run something like this to double the attack and HP of all their individual minions, because this is a really good aggro tool just so you don't fall out of favor later in the game, and thus allowing you to have a late game strategy if you draw it early enough. Now for the next card revealed and the final one, which is Scourge Rager, which is a 3-cost neutral undead minion with 5 attack, 4 HP, reborn, battlecry, and die. So it instantly triggers the reborn on it, so it becomes a 5/1, which is really, really funny. And honestly, I think this is probably one of the best Ragers that we've ever seen, and is actually quite playable because it does have the synergy with Infuse from the previous set, and it also does have the synergy with a bunch of the undead minions that have been printed so far in this set, while also not having the most terrible stat line on itself. Sure, it's only going to have 1 HP if you have no way to actually buff it up, but being able to actually get a instant infuse off is pretty incredible anyways. All right, so those were all the cards revealed so far. Let me know down below which ones you're most looking forward to. I should have a third video, I think, on the mercenary news coming out a little bit later. And then afterwards, later in the night, I'll probably have some Rattlegore event videos too. With that all being said, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.